This program contains copyrighted material that may be used for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research under the provisions of Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. All rights to the copyrighted material used in this program are reserved to their respective owners.
Hello and welcome. I'm Blessings Wynn. I will be your host throughout the series, A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. This series brings the New Age and its perilous practices to the forefront of discussion. Today's guest is a man who describes himself as a former secular Jew and Kabbalah occult practitioner. Today, Oleg Litvac stands victorious over the occult. He's here to share his testimony. From the New Age to a new life in Jesus. Welcome, Brother Oleg. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you, Blessings. Glad to be here.
Well, let's get started. I want to know more about your Jewish background and how that developed your spirituality.
Sure. I was actually born in Ukraine, in the former Soviet Union. And my family and I, while we were technically Jewish, we were only so ethnically. Mm-hmm. And we were allowed to leave to come to the U.S. because at that time there was a program that existed to allow Soviet Jews to leave to go to Israel. We worked it out so that instead of going to Israel, we came to the U.S. And just a little bit of background, most Soviet Jews, as well as any other group from any other faith, mm-hmm. were part of that group by name only.
Right.
They didn't really ascribe to it in any way because at that time the Soviet Union was a communist country and there was no faith of any kind, and in fact you were discouraged from practicing your faith, oftentimes by threat. Mm-hmm. And so when we came to the U.S., we didn't really have much of a faith, but because our sponsoring group were Jewish, they voluntold me to go to a Jewish school, which is called a yeshiva. And the yeshiva is run like a regular school. You know, you have your math, your reading, and all of the other regular subjects. But then in addition to that, there's religious instruction. And the religious instruction, it is of the kind that some would describe as, at least in my case, legalistic. Meaning you were taught, okay, if you do these things, these are good works, they're added to your credit.
Right.
And they outweigh, hopefully, the bad things you've done. And so you never quite knew where you stood with God, because do I have enough to outweigh the bad things? Or do I need to do more good things? And oftentimes those good things came not necessarily in the way of what we would describe as good works, like feeding the poor, but it would be more like saying rote prayers or following certain rituals. And oftentimes these prayers or rituals, you didn't know what they meant. You didn't even, I didn't know Hebrew, but we were taught to pray these things in Hebrew. And so it left me with a bad taste in my mouth. In addition, because when I came home from school, my parents were totally secular, so I'd go from school where they were teaching us all these things and come home and have my kielbasa sandwich.
Right.
And Sabbath consisted of Saturday morning cartoons,
mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of dissonance there.
Right.
And the dissonance eventually made me question, well, what am I really doing in this school? I don't really believe in any of it. My parents don't either. Why should I keep going there? And at this time, we had moved from where we originally moved to, which was Rhode Island, to New York City. And I decided to go to public school. And so I left my Jewish school mm-hmm. and went to public school. And it was in that public school system that I got exposed to a whole different way of life,
Right,
which I was shielded from. But that was my journey in Judaism, and it pretty much ended there.
So tell me, after you went from having such an extreme Jewish experience to now a public school setting, what was the limbo in your spirituality at this particular junction in your life?
Yeah, it's a great question. At this point, I really didn't want to have any kind of religion in my life at first, and I was very happy to get away from that. But what I noticed, of course, was that in place of that, there were all these other things that were happening around me. Because, and I'm not saying all public schools are like this, but at least the public schools I went to, the kids there, many of them came from broken homes.
I see.
And so they brought, the violence, the sex, the drugs, and all of that into the school. And I was really out of my element there, and I didn't know what to do with it all. So I kind of withdrew to myself. There were a few other kids who were kind of in my boat. We all kind of banded together. And we essentially moved from that bad environment to create our own environment, and part of that involved the occult.
I see. So would you say that there was a particular thing that you guys shared in common that drew you to the occult? And if so, what would that be?
Yeah, there were several things, one of which was music. And at that time it was hard rock, heavy metal music. It spoke to where we were. It played into the angst that we felt about, we don't belong here, what are we doing here? There was a lot of anger to it. And not just anger, but also it gave you kind of a feeling of power.
I see. So would you say, when you say heavy music, heavy metal music, for the people in our audience that don't know what exactly that is, could you describe that medium?
Yeah, it is essentially, if you think of just your regular rock music, think of it as that, but louder, more distorted, angrier, with instead of singing, oftentimes shouting. The themes are much darker and often revolve around anger, violence, and the occult many times. And some of the bands that we were into, even the names suggested that. Like for instance, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, which is a torture device, and these kinds of bands like that.
They're overtly blasphemous. I mean, Black Sabbath. You know,
exactly.
And someone who's not familiar with what the Sabbath mean may overlook that and then begin to have some, second thoughts about who they subscribe to in terms of their faith and their belief.
Exactly.
So you found this to be true for you and your friends.
Right.
And where did that take you? Did that open other gateways for you? Were there messages in the music that took you to other places?
For sure. It was a very blasphemous message, as you said. So it was definitely anti-God. And some were even more toward the occult and even Satanism, some of them.
Okay.
We tended to shy away from the very, very dark stuff, but even so, even the lighter heavy metal was still pretty bad. And it wasn't just the music, though, although that was definitely a contributing factor. It was a whole constellation of things together. We started to get into role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, which have a lot of occultic themes in them.
Indeed.
We got into a lot of fantasy literature, which is very similar in that way.
Right.
And all of that together really gave us an appetite for it. And then all that was left was to have something come to satisfy that appetite in a more overt manner.
So how did you actually satisfy this occult need, this thirst? Did this take you from music into actually practicing? And if so, what were the tools and the mechanisms that you used to explore that spiritual realm? Yeah.
One of my friends one day came to me and said, "Hey, I got this book. It's pretty amazing." And he was also, like me, a Jewish kid who's getting into all of this stuff.
Yes.
And he said, this book that talks about a combination of the occult and Judaism, And it does it through this thing called Kabbalah, which I had never heard of, but supposedly it was this mystical branch of Judaism that kind of fills in a gap there that supposedly is missing. And it acted as a gateway because...
So is this the same religion that I see many of like the Hollywood celebrities, they'll have like a little red string tied around their wrist?
Yeah, and for a while it was very popular. I think even Madonna was into it for a while.
Right.
It is it's appealing because it still allows you to have your ties back to the mother faith.
I see.
But it still allows you to essentially practice the occult carte blanche. And that's what it did for us. It introduced us into the world of the occult. They called it Kabbalah, or another word for it they used was magic, but spelled with a K.
K, right. And the K is intentional, I learned. That it differentiates like stage magic from the occult magic.
Exactly.
Now, as you're practicing this, did you find that there were, let's say, explore positives, things that you gained from actually practicing this?
Yeah, absolutely, because it incorporates things like meditation, like transcendental meditation, which it does have some benefits.
Right, it does.
Allows you to focus to some degree. It also, and I don't know if this was just psychological, but it gave me a lot of confidence where I could talk to anybody, associate with anybody, and feel comfortable with them. And people noticed it and they said, "Hey, Oleg, you're different. Something's different about you, but in a good way." And of course that fed my pride.
Right. I could share in that because in my days as a yoga practitioner and an instructor, I found that the meditation was very peaceful. You know, you get your heart rate down, you seem to just have a clear mind, and you don't really realize that status of being disconnected even from yourself allows entities in.
Yeah.
And you're deceived and you don't quite know just yet that you're creeping into a place that there's potentially no return for.
Exactly.
Did you experience negative impacts from having done so?
For sure. The first of which was, I was a physics major in college, and part of the way I was able to pay for my tuition was to work as a research assistant. And so I depended on that money. And what would start to happen is I would start to hear, this is very strange, but you've heard cicadas, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're here, aren't they?
They're very loud.
Yeah.
And I would hear them just in my head. And just when I was about to work, it would start. And over that, as like a frequency above it, was a voice. It wasn't quite a human voice, and I couldn't make out what it was saying, but I could make out the emotion and intent of the voice. And what I made out was anger, hatred, and a deep satisfaction in seeing me suffer.
Incredible.
And it was like nothing I had ever experienced before. It freaked me out the first time it happened, and it continued to happen every few days. It would just come back, and it would go away in a few minutes, come back a few days. I finally went to one of my friends who was also into the same thing I was, and I asked him, "Hey, I'm experiencing this weird stuff. Have you ever had anything like this?" He laughed. He said, "Oh yeah, it happens to me sometimes. You just need to do the right rituals to protect yourself against those evil spirits." And it was that.
Was this the first time that you heard it referred to as such?
Yes.
As evil spirits?
Because up until that point, it wasn't evil spirits, it was angels. Angels. And I thought, what in the world? Of course, evil spirits are angels. But I didn't know that.
Fallen angels,
I didn't know there were two different classes at that time. And when he told me that, it was just like this punch in the head that I realized, whoa, what am I messing with here?
So now there's a demarcation between ignorance and now informed consent. Did you find that even now that the light bulb had clicked on, that you were able to thwart the efforts of this entity possessing you, or was it just doing what it was going to do?
So what I did is I dialed back all the stuff I was into just what I called the light stuff, yoga,
light stuff,
meditation, but not any of the rituals And it actually did help to some degree. It happened less often. It still happened from time to time. But other things happened in its place. And actually the one that really sealed the coffin for me of the occult was when I had worked at a New Age bookshop. I actually worked at a New Age bookshop at one point toward the end.
Did you seek this job out? Or okay.
I did, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So even though you were having, second thoughts about it, and you were now devising a plan to limit this interaction with dark spirits, you still sought more information.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That is quite ironic.
Yeah.
That speaks to the pull and the power of this.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, yes. I didn't want to let go of it. I just wanted to get rid of the bad effects.
I see.
And so I worked at this New Age bookstore, and my boss, she would have these, they're not really seances, but they're kind of like channeling sessions where she would play this tape of this person who would channel an alien entity, as they called it. And this alien entity was supposed to talk about the secrets of the universe. And while we were listening to that, we would also meditate so that we could focus better.
Interesting.
And I did that a few times, and then I noticed I would get these weird fits of anger. They would just well up within me. And one time I had been talking to my dad on the phone. We got into an argument about something. I don't even remember what now, but I started to just light into him. I was just so angry, and I blanked out. And the next thing I know, when I came to, the phone was I had hung up the phone, and then it rang, and my mom called me and said, "What did you just say to your dad? I've never seen him this upset before." And I couldn't tell her because I didn't know. I don't remember what I told her.
Right.
I thought, oh my goodness, what am I doing?
Right, what have I done here?
Yeah, exactly. One of the reasons I wanted to go into the occult was I wanted to become an enlightened being.
Right.
That's one of the promises it gives you.
It does.
And this was turning me into a monster.
And the word enlightenment, you find that word across the board in all the religions. And the thing that's really interesting about it is, of course, we have curiosity and we have this innate desire and this hole, this emptiness that we need filled. And the counterfeits are out there. And you dabble in these things and the hole actually gets bigger and more gaping. And you just keep trying to fill it, and it becomes voluminous. And so how did you find your way? Like, what satiated your willingness, to continue in this path? What actually ended it for you and got you to get out?
Well, I would say that experience ended it for me. I stopped working at that store, and at that point, I didn't know what to believe, but I knew I couldn't mess with that anymore because it was messing me up.
Right.
And I didn't know what I was looking for. I had graduated at that point, and I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, and I decided, okay, I'm going to go into neurobiology because I want to understand the brain. I was still looking for something to fill that void.
Right.
And what happened was, at that point, I had met my wife-to-be. And she was a new student in that same program that I was just starting. And I discovered that she was a Christian, which I wasn't a fan of Christians up until that point.
Especially coming from a Jewish background, right?
From a Jewish background and from a New Age background.
Yep.
But she just intrigued me. She was so different in a good way. Of course, physically attractive, but also her spirit, her character was attractive. And I'd never met anyone like her before. I didn't even know how to pronounce the denomination she belonged to, Seventh-day something or other.
Right.
And it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me at first. I was like, wait, Christians who keep the Sabbath, how is that a thing? I thought only Jews kept the Sabbath and Christians go to church on Sunday. She was patient with me. She explained things to me, but I started to read some of the books in her library. And I read some of the books from C.S. Lewis, who really helped me understand the philosophical basis for Christianity. I started to read the Bible, which up until that point I had never really done. People would read the Bible to me. This was an uncanny thing. Every few months, somebody on the subway, even homeless people, would just single me out to read passages of the Bible to me. And I never understood that.
The Holy Spirit.
Yeah, exactly. It was the Holy
Tugging on your
Spirit
heart, yeah.
planting little seeds. And now they were starting to germinate.
Amen.
And I started to read the Gospels, and I saw this Jesus not as just this enlightened guru, but actually as the Son of God. What really stood in my way at that point wasn't so much the desire to be a Christian. I really actually was drawn to it. It was, I was a scientist, and I wanted to have a concrete basis for my faith. And I felt like I needed to know that the Bible was real and that Jesus was the Messiah. I needed something verifiable. And God actually answered that prayer. He orchestrated such that my wife and I were getting serious at this point, and we were going to go out to meet her parents. They happened to live out in Berrien Springs in Michigan, and her stepdad was a pastor at that point there. Mm-hmm. And he taught a yearly class on, this was Christmas time, so, the advent of the first advent of the Messiah. Right. And he talked about Daniel 9 and how the Bible predicted that advent. And he went through it in detail and showed all the dates. And he said, look, if you want to, you can go verify the dates. Go get an encyclopedia. There was no internet really, so to speak of at that point. So I did. I actually went and verified it, and the dates lined up to the year. To the year. It was amazing.
Right.
And
this is concrete evidence that you were searching for.
Yes.
And you had already experienced growing up reading the Torah, mm-hmm. right? These books are also included in the Christian Bible.
Yes.
And at no point were any of your philosophical or theological teachers pointing to any of these facts.
No, definitely not. In fact, I had heard of the book of Daniel only from Daniel in the Lion's Den. It was a kid's story we were taught, but no other part of the book was ever taught to us. And in fact, I found out only later that you're not supposed to read the prophetic writings of Daniel. It's forbidden in Rabbinic Judaism. And
you wonder why?
So it was definitely a turning point, because it gave me the rational basis for my faith that I was looking for. And at that point, it was just a matter of, okay, now what? I need courage, because you could be convicted of something and convinced in your mind, but now you have to face your friends, your family, all of whom will not be happy.
So now you have this woman in your life who's helping you walk in a new path. Now you have a book that's giving you and filling you. How did that then turn your social environment? Did it wreak havoc? Did it encourage others? Did you see a difference?
I did see a difference. It replaced a lot of the things in my life with better things.
I see.
So I had friends who then were no longer friends because they thought I was crazy and that I had joined a cult.
Yeah, that's very common.
Which is ironic,
yes.
Given they were into the occult, and they thought I was joining a cult. My parents didn't understand it and were very hurt by it. But, over time, I have better friends, a church family, and my own family. And my parents have since softened their stance on it. They even occasionally, when they visit, come to church with me. And so I would say that I consider all of my former life loss.
Amen.
So that I may have Christ.
Praise God. So what I'm hearing is that it was worth the sacrifice. It was worth giving up. And did you feel the love, moving on your spirit? Was there any remnants of that anger that was welling up inside of you? Did you feel any of that?
No, it all went away. It was like Jesus bound all of those things so that they could no longer torment me.
Yes.
And I have to thank him every day for that.
He's so good.
I shudder to think what would have happened had those circumstances that he orchestrated not happened. What would I become? So I thank him every day, and I've come to know him better each day, and nothing can top that.
So the friends that you lost, have you ever tried to witness to them?
Yeah, I have. It didn't work out.
It didn't.
It didn't work out.
Now, why do you think that it worked for you, but it didn't work for them?
So I would say part of that is actually, if I were honest, on me. Because, God is very patient with each of us. He knows where we are. He knows how to reach us, and He doesn't push us too hard.
True.
He doesn't throw everything at us all at once. And unfortunately, people aren't like God. And I certainly wasn't. I discovered this new truth, and I thought, I'm going to save my friends. And I just came at them with, both guns blazing.
Bible thumping.
Yes, here are the proof texts. Here are all the things you should and shouldn't do. And they were like, you're nuts. And, now I've learned to tone it down. Jesus's method is to get to know people first, mingle with people.
Right, get on their level.
Yes.
Right, see them for where they are. And
show them that you care about them as a person first, not just as a feather in your cap. And doing that really has made a difference. It takes a lot longer, but it's better.
But it's worth it.
Yes.
So Oleg, in our last thoughts here, is there a method that you would give to watchers or viewers that are in your same place, that have friends that are in the occult? How would you say to them to plant seeds moving forward?
I would say, number one, be a Christian. Just be a Christian. In other words, they may, and I was on the giving end of this at one point, they may mock you for what you believe. They may, sneer at you. Don't stoop to their level.
Right.
Be a Christian.
Yes.
Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Do that. It does have an effect. It may not be noticeable to you because they want to hold on to their pride, but it will have that effect. And then the other thing is, be available to them when they need help. When they need help, be there for them because they will need help.
Amen.
This is a destructive lifestyle. It corrodes the spirit and the body, and it's only a matter of time before they will start to have crippling problems in their life. And you need to be there for them to help them pick up the pieces and show them a better way.
Thank you so much, Brother Oleg, for being with us today and sharing your testimony. It's so encouraging to see how you plant seeds. Remember, we're not responsible for saving lives, only planting seeds and being co-laborers with Christ. In the words of the Apostle Paul, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. So then, neither he who plants is anything, nor he who waters, but God who gives the increase. Be gentle and, like my brother Oleg, faithful and intentional in your collaboration efforts with Christ. He ensures by so doing that the fields will indeed be ripe for harvest. Please join us next time. This has been A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing.